where were we? I think it has been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that is everything. But I must see her before I go and make arrangements for another Bunbury. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I really came to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to send the car for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Then we have got to part?
I'm afraid so. It's a very painful parting.
It is always painful parting from people whom one has known for a very brief space in time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you. I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
Oh, I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you will allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really have a diary? I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
Oh, no. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it comes out in volume form, I hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I am quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily.
The car is at the door, sir.
Tell it to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Jack. I don't care for anybody in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course. Why, we have been engaged for the past 3 months.
For the past 3 months?
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
And how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And of course, any man much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say you'll think it foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling. And when was our engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear tree here. The next day, I bought this little ring in your name, and here is the bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
Did I give you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. And here's the box in which I keep all of your dear letters.
My letters? But my own sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
Well, you need hardly remind me of that fact, Ernest. I recall only too well I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote always, 3 times a week and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily.
Oh, I couldn't possibly. They would make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I had broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so very badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Oh, of course it was. You can see my entry, if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But why did you break it off? What had I done? I had done nothing at all. Cecily, I'm very hurt indeed to hear you broke it off, particularly when the weather was so charming.
Well, it hardly would have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are.
You dear romantic boy.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily?
I don't think I could now that I have actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name is Earnest. There's something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband's name is not Earnest.
But my dear child, do you mean to say that you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
Well, my own sweet, dear, loving little darling, I really can't see why you should object to the name of Algernon. It is not at all a bad name. In fact, it is rather an aristocratic name. Half the chaps who go into the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character. But I fear I would not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in the practices of all the rites and ceremonials of the church?
Oh, yes. Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him on a most important christening. I mean, on a most important business. I shan't be away more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th and that I only met you today for the very first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to speak with Mr. Irving.
Is it Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray ask the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing's sure to be back soon, and
Yes.
you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of those many good elderly women who are often associated with Uncle Jack and some of his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think it is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew? What a very sweet name. Something tells me that we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say, and my first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we have known each other for such a comparatively short time. Pray sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you wish.
Then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favorable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You've never heard of Papa, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, Papa, I'm glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for a man, and once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate. Does he not? And I don't like that. Cecily, Mama, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted as part of her system. So do you mind if I looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolyn. I am very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh, no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, some female relative of advanced years, resides here also?
Oh, no, I have no mother, nor, in fact, any relations.
Indeed.
My guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh. It's strange you never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I'm not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish that you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
I do. I think that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 42, and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. But even men of the noblest possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the influence of the physical charms of others.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn. Did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who's my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ah, that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I've never heard any man mention a brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
Dearest Gwendolyn, there's no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
I think there is some slight error, Miss Cecily. I am engaged to Mr. Ernest Worthing. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I'm afraid you must be under some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is certainly very curious, for Ernest asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One must have something sensational to read in the train. I'm very sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can say, dear Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish, but I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have got into, I will never reproach him for it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say I've never seen a spade. It is clear that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall we lay tea here, miss, as usual?
Yes, as usual.
Are there any interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh, yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden, this is Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country. If anybody, who as anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
Well, this is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I hear the aristocracy are suffering from it very much at present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I have been told. May I offer you tea, Miss Fairfax?
Yes, thank you. Detestable girl. But I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
And that to Miss Fairfax?
You have put lumps of sugar in my tea, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusty boy from the machinations of any other woman, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. And I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar nature to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest, my own Ernest.
Gwendolyn, darling.
A moment. May I ask if you're underage to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. Could put such an idea inside your pretty little head.
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is at present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack?
Oh, here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, Ernest, may I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn!
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolyn! I mean Gwendolyn.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you, you may.
I felt there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Is your name Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name certainly is John, and it has been for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wronged Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, will you not?
There is just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there's just one thing I'd like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, it's very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. But this is the first time in my life I've been reduced to such a painful position. I'm quite inexperienced doing anything of this kind. However, I will say quite candidly, I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I've never had a brother, and I have the smallest intention of having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
But you're never a brother of any kind.
Never. Not even of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, Cecily. Neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl suddenly to find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to follow after.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
So this ghastly state of things is what you call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes, and a wonderful Bunbury it is. The most wonderful Bunbury I've ever had in my life.
But you had no right to Bunbury here.
That's absurd. One has a right to Bunbury anywhere one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
Oh, a serious Bunburyist, good heavens!
Well, one has to be serious about something if one wishes to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about Bunbury. What on earth you are serious about, I haven't the remotest idea. About everything, I should fancy.
One small satisfaction I have in this whole wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You'll be able to go down to the country as often as you do, dear Algie, and it's a good thing, too.
Your brother is a little off color, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently as your wicked custom was. And not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I must say, you taking a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that, quite inexcusable. And to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defense at all for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
Well, I want to be engaged to Gwendolyn. That is all. I love her.
Well, I simply want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
Well, there's certainly no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
From think there's much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Oh, how can you sit there, calmly eating muffins when we're in this horrible trouble? I can't quite make it out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The crumbs would get all over my lap. One must eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly heartless. You're eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. At the present moment, I am eating muffins because I am unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
That is no right. You should be eating the muffins in such a greedy way.
Jack, I wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
I suppose a man can eat his own muffins in his own garden.
You have just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I say it's perfectly heartless of you under the circumstances. Quite a different thing.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algernon, I wish to goodness you would go.
You can't possibly ask me to go without having some dinner. It's absurd. I never go without my dinner. No one ever does, except vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I've just made arrangements with Dr. Choswell to be christened at 5:45, under the name of Earnest.
Oh, the sooner you get rid of that nonsense, the better. I have made arrangements with Dr. Choswell to be christened myself at 5:30, and I will naturally be christened Earnest because Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened Earnest. That is absurd. Besides, I have a perfect right to be christened Earnest if I choose, for there's no evidence that I've been christened by anyone. And I find it extremely probable I never was, and so does Dr. Choswell. It's entirely different in your case, for you've been christened already.
If you're quite unsure about your ever having been christened, I must say I think it rather dangerous you're venturing on it now.
Oh, that is nonsense! You only speak nonsense!
Jack, I really wish you wouldn't. I told you, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake!
Then why on earth would you serve tea cake up for your guest? What ideas you have of hospitality?
Algernon, I have already asked you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
I haven't quite finished my tea yet, and there's still one muffin left.